Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the 80-20 moderation and how to get to a place where you're eating a little bit more moderately. How do you use this as a guideline without being too rigid and restricted and being a little bit crazy like many of us get. So if you don't follow me on Instagram already, check me out at Kimberly Rose Platt. I have a ton of information out there. I have a ton of resources. I have a macro grocery guide if that's something that you'd be interested in. I know it's not sexy. I know it's not super common for people to be like, yeah, I'm following 80-20. We hear about keto, we hear about Whole30, we hear about paleo, we hear about all the different diets that are working for people. Who knows what? I mean, in the past it was like Atkins and like South Beach diet, and there's always like some, all these like cool fad diets that people are losing all this weight. But when we hear about moderation and we hear about balance in 80-20, it's not very exciting. And it's something long term. It's not something short term, so you don't see super quick results. It's a work in progress all the time. So it's really about making that lifestyle change. It's letting go of the need to look constantly a certain way. It's more about feeling better, you know what I mean? So you got to switch that fixed mindset of like, I need to lose 10 pounds to like, I want to be healthier and I want to feel good and I want to be able to go and have ice cream and then not feel like I'm going to go home and binge, or I'm not going to go out and restrict myself from having a piece of wedding cake and then feel like I'm going to come home and like eat everything in sight. So it's really about finding a balance, and it's about consistency, which is what I preach all of the time, and finding that perfect diet for you. And when I say 80-20 rule, I don't want you to go and be like, all right, I'm supposed to have 2,000 calories a day. I'm going to calculate this out and it's this many calories. It shouldn't be like that, because there's going to be some days it's like 90-20, 90-10, and there's going to be some days where you're like 50-50 because you're going out and going to barbecue and doing all this type of stuff. So the three pieces of it, and then three things that I teach my clients, or I have a feel good foods and simple staples. So feel good foods should be energizing foods. They should be something that's energy producing, not energy draining. So you can imagine for 80% of your foods, you should be focusing on lean proteins. You should be eating veggies. You should be eating carbohydrates that are going to be fueling for you, foods that make you feel good. So there may be someone out there is like, brown rice really actually drains me, so don't eat brown rice. You know what I mean? So you just need to figure out what works for you. But these are the three tips that I have for you. So it's energy producing foods. They need to be satisfying. They need to be foods that you actually look forward to, that leave you satisfied, so you're not going into the cabinet later on because you don't feel like they were fulfilling for you and they didn't feel like didn't taste good for you. So that's the third piece of it, is taste. It must taste good. If your foods do not taste good to you, then why the hell are you going to stick with it? Because I know I have done this in the past. I've had bland baked chicken, I've had sweet potatoes with nothing on them, and I've had broccoli with nothing on it. And to me, that is just, maybe that'll work for you, but throw some freaking seasoning on it. You know what I mean? Cook that chicken on the grill or throw it in a crock pot. Throw some salsa in there, throw some barbecue sauce on there, use ketchup, use a little butter, use a little seasoning, use something to actually make it taste good. So these are the three tips that I have as far as the types of food that you should be eating, the feel-good foods. They should make you feel good afterwards. You feel good eating them, and your body feels good ingesting them. So the second piece I teach clients is having simple staples. And what I mean by this is having meals like, it depends on your personality, because there's some people that really like to have a lot of variety in their diet, and there's some people that could eat like literally the same lunch every single day, which is more typically like me. Simple staples are either foods that are going to be in your diet consistently, that you have around the house, that are going to be those feel-good foods, and that you can create meals out of. And I always suggest meals, and I can talk about this in another video, about having balance, having that protein, carbohydrates, and fats in them. Those foods are going to make you feel good and also help you reach your goals. And sometimes your goals are just to feel good in general, or sometimes your goals are just to get some consistency and get some reps and start like telling your body that you're eating enough, getting to maintenance and holding maintenance. So it all depends on what your goals are, where you're at, where your intentions are. It really depends on where you are in the stage. And some people are on a place where they just don't have a great relationship with food, and they need to start in a different area than someone that maybe, has been focusing on eating moderately for a long period of time and are ready to go after a physique goal, or are ready to make some adjustments and put on some muscle or something along those lines, are ready to track macros or try something different, try a different tool temporarily. So back to the simple staples. So what I recommend is having like 3 to 5 meals that you can switch around. And like I said, it depends. I'm just giving you a rough guideline. So for me, it's like having the 3 to 5 meals that I typically have for dinners that I can switch out. And I feel like I used to stress myself out a lot when I would have to plan out a million different recipes. I felt like I had to have something different each day, each week, each month. It was just like, it was overwhelming. And I personally don't have time for that shit. I don't know if you have time for that, but it's just not worth it for me to stress over the fact that I have to have these in-depth, crazy recipes every single day. I would go online, I'd go on Pinterest, and I would overwhelm myself. So that to me is not worth it. Having simple staples is something like quick meals that you can whip together, maybe when you have, that only take 10 to 15 minutes. So some of the stuff that I've been loving right now, I love zoodles. I love that I can throw in some meatballs, frozen meatballs. I can throw in some sort of protein on the side. I can use either spaghetti sauce, or I like to make a mix of a more Thai-based one, and then it has some fats in it, it has some proteins in it, and it has veggies in it, and it has some carbs in it. So this is what works for me. And then I also have like another meal that I make, which is a wrap. It's a grilled sauteed peppers and mushrooms, and I throw in protein, and I put avocado in. And these are just base meals that have a balance of protein, carbs, and fats that, depending on what you need for the day or depending on how you're feeling, you can adjust them accordingly. They're not meals that are like going to take you hours and hours to create, and they're not going to be something that you genuinely dislike. So you want to be looking forward to these meals. You want to looking forward to these foods. So for sometimes I make egg salad and I dip pretzel crisps in with it for a snack. And this is like a simple staple that I can have all the time. Yes, I've had periods of life where I can make protein pancakes and I freeze them and I do all this stuff, but sometimes it's like having something quick on hand and you can just grab and go, and it makes you feel good. Like I said before, the feel good foods, and this to me is the 80% that you should be focusing on. That is the 80% of the time. You have foods that are there readily available, that are healthy for you, that are fueling you properly, leaving you energized, leaving you satisfied, so you're not feeling like you're going to go after the cookie bag later on. And then 20% is the fun food. So some days my 20% is rice cakes with sun butter and some bananas, and like that isn't, I would never say that's unhealthy, but sometimes that's all I need. Or like a sugar-free Jello with whipped cream. Or sometimes it's cookies for me. Sometimes I like to make portion controlled cookies. So I have the portions already cut out in the freezer, and I just plop them in and I cook them. And this works for me. But sometimes your 20% is like having a lot of cream in your coffee or sugar in your coffee. It's whatever's going to leave you satisfied to be more consistent, be more balanced. So this is my thought process on 80-20, and I know I could go in depth a lot longer. And if you have any questions, make sure to reach out. And again, you can follow me on Instagram at Kimberly Rose Platt. Let me know if this was helpful. A little bit, some of the tools that I use as far as creating more 80-20 rules in your life. It's not about being rigid. It's not about, this many calories is the 20%. It's about being flexible, because your day is going to change all the time. It's about being flexible, and it's about being adaptable and finding foods that you actually genuinely enjoy, personalizing it for yourself. That's the biggest miss that we see in the nutrition industry. Is there's cookie cutter meal plans, there's food lists that are telling people what exactly to eat. There's fad diets that are telling people you can only eat this or you can only eat that, and they don't work. They don't work long term, and they don't work for your lifestyle. And it's very hard to stick to something that cuts out your favorite foods and makes you adapt and change your lifestyle. Let me know if this was helpful. I'll talk to you next week.